I think we're losing the magic of fantasy, and it's because of Romantasy. Hey guys, welcome back to Read with Melanin, and today I would like to talk to y'all about something that has been on my mind for a long time. I have kind of rewritten the script multiple times so that I could be able to correctly articulate it, which clearly I'm off to a good start. And I think we're losing the magic of fantasy, and it's because of Romantasy. I personally, now I'm going to say this is all my personal opinion. You can agree, you can disagree. That's fine. That's kind of what I'm making this video for, so we can talk about it. But don't be crazy, because I can get crazier. But yes, I kind of feel like every fantasy book that is being heavily advertised lately, especially for 2025, all of them have been romantasy, or they have been advertised as romantasy, and they're not really a romantasy, but romantasy and the romance and the it's always oh, this girl has a team up with this shifty guy, and they're enemies. They don't like each other at first, but somehow their love will stand a test of time. That's kind of been the plot for a lot of these books. It's always the main character not liking the love interest at first, but later on, starting to love the love interest. And this is supposed to be a fantasy, but what you just described is a romance. You know what I'm saying? Fantasy has always had it. You know what? Hold on. Let me go back to my notes. Now, before you think, I actually like romance. Thanks to being a part of Black Prose Club, I like romance now. Would never thought I would have said that, but I read both, and I just think that it's taken over the fantasy genre, and I just wanted to go back to being fantasy romance and paranormal romance where it belongs. So I did a little Googles just to make sure I got this right, and Romantasy is a hybrid genre that blends romance and fantasy elements, but in my opinion, a lot of them are love stories in a magical realm. We're getting these high fantasy things, and a lot of them, the actual fantasy aspects of the story are lacking because we're so heavily focused on the romance between the characters. And for most fantasy books where they have romances like that, we're normally obsessed with everything about the book, including the romance, if that makes sense. I think this is also in part because a lot of these romantasies were creating these worlds. And for me personally, I love fantasy because of the fact that you can create these new worlds to exist in. And there's usually new worlds, new magic systems, things that I can engulf myself in where I'm I'm a necromancer. You remember that kind of feeling. I have not had that kind of feeling. Unfortunately, I haven't had that kind of feeling since Children of Blood and Bone 1. And we all know how that series ended. Not good. But when that first book came out, I wanted to be a necromancer. I completely remember the Zell, Eisen. I remember all those romance relationships. But what I was focused on was the actual fantasy of the book. And I think we're kind of losing that essence. I feel like because Romantasy is being pushed so heavily by publishers and stuff, it's literally taking over all the tables at Barnes and Nobles. It's why is Twilight still the first book in the thing? Also, people labeling Twilight as a romantasy. Calm down. We got to stop. Labeling things as romantasies, we got to stop. I believe that there should be a balance. I believe that we are missing a balance. I feel like a lot of these books, truth be told, should be paranormal romances because it's the same romance plot every single time with a sprinkle of magic. And there's nothing wrong with paranormal romances, but I do believe you get a higher paycheck if it's listed as romantasy instead of paranormal romance or fantasy romance. Romance gets a bad rep until you throw a dragon in it, and now all of a sudden it's the bestseller. Make that make sense. Another issue that I have with publishers pushing romantasy is that they will label a book as romantasy even when it's not. So yes, there might be a romance plot in the story, but to me, once you label it as a romantasy, it's telling me that romance is the main point of the story, that everything else is a side quest, essentially. That's what romantasy labeling does to me personally when I'm looking for new books to read. And even lately, you guys have seen when I'm posting about books that are coming out, a lot of the books are romantasies. And I'm searching blogs, I'm searching book lists, I'm going to publisher websites, I'm searching everywhere I can find, trying to find books that are not labeled as romantasies. And then the other issue with that is for the people that really, really like romantasies, if a book is labeled romantasy and it's not, it's getting bad reviews because it's not actually what they came for, which was the romance. And I think it's creating this like weird void situation because like, let's retire it for a little bit. I think it needs a break. Me personally, as a fantasy reader, I feel like we need more. I'm missing the lore. Like I said before, I'm missing the lore. I'm missing the world building. I'm missing the high stakes. And like, I'm missing the high stakes that's not automatically connected to the hot guy. Because again, the fantasy can exist without romance. The fantasy can exist with a romance subplot. Like, it doesn't need to be the whole story. Like, why is everything devoted to whether or not this guy is going to betray me? His family is like from the opposing side. Obviously, he's going to betray you. This is what I'm also saying. Like, it's like romantasy, even when you listen to the authors who write romantasy, and this is not a dig, again, this is not a dig to the authors. This is not a dig to the stories that they're writing. This is a dig to the publishing companies for pushing romantasy so hard. Because even when authors are talking about their fantasy books, you know what they're leading with? The romances. You know what they're leading with? The smut scenes. They're not actually talking about the fantasy of the story. They're not talking about the world that they've built. They're not talking about any of that. You know, most of the time, like, fantasy authors be like, look at the map that I drew, like, look at the like magic system I've created. Like, we're not getting that anymore. We're just getting, oh, like there's a really hot guy and like there's a scene where like, you know, he has her bent over something. And I'm like, so smut, which again, I'm not mad, smut it up. But isn't that also romance? Isn't that what romance authors get judged for doing all the time? But now, like, because it's a fae bending her over versus like a regular guy, like it's supposed to be like not paranormal romance. Last time I checked, that's still fantasy or paranormal romance. So again, for me, I think we need a balance. I think the best way that we could go about this is creating some balance. Now, you can agree with me, you can not agree with me. That's fine. I've thought about this a lot, and so I have some thoughts. I'm not saying ban romance. Like, that's not what I'm saying, because there are a couple fantasy books that I know for a fact have romance elements in them, and I like them. Like, I want to keep romance, but I want other fantasies to thrive in the book market again. There are a lot of indie books that I've been trying to get a hold of as well, but because I'm on a book ban, I'm relying a lot more on my library and stuff. So this year I've really noticed that there is kind of a lack of variety in the fantasy genre in terms of like what's really popular, because like the libraries are not going to get books that are not really hyped. So you can request a book, but if it's not something that a lot of people are requesting, like libraries are not going to get that. And I feel like it's literally limiting the fantasy section. Every new book of 2025 that I can think of right off the top of my head is Romantasy, which could be a problem on my end because I did take a break from reading the super high fantasy stuff and I wanted more like militia type things. I'm a fantasy girl that like loves fantasies where like people are fighting and dying and stuff. So that's also something that I kind of feel like I lacked this year. And yeah, I just think like I said, I'm currently exploring and searching for books that are not advertised as romantasy at all. Like, yes, if you're with a king of thieves and you find out he's fine, I already know at some point y'all gonna be like getting together in the book. That's what happens normally in a fantasy book. I just don't want it to be the forefront. I want balance. I want to be able to find books that are not romantasies again. That used to not be hard. I mean, even Fairy Loot, like I stopped Fairy Loot because Fairy Loot started a romantasy box and then every book in their regular fantasy box was still a romantasy. Like we couldn't get a distinction, but like now you're just basically just having multiples. Like it's all romantasy, just making more money because you can say that one of them specifically a romantasy box and the other one just so happens to be a romantasy as well. So that's my That's my thought. So, in conclusion, as I said before, I actually do not hate romance. I actually like romance. If you look at my reading recaps this year, I've read a lot more romance than fantasy books because the fantasies have not been calling me. I have been disappointed with a lot of fantasy books this year that I really wanted more, but they were just too focused on the love interest. I missed the wonder of fantasy. I miss the excitement of picking up a new fantasy series or a new book that could start a fantasy series or even a standalone and wanting to engulf myself in the world. Like I haven't felt that feeling in a long time. Well, actually, I think since Amina al-Sarafi, I wanted to be in her world, which I learned might have been like a little bit of the Daevabad world. But like those are worlds that I can be like, yes, there were romance elements in those. And like, I wanted to be a part of those worlds. The world building and the fantasy lore is one of the reasons why I love fantasy so much. And I think we're losing it because we're focusing too much on who's bending over who. And I'm sorry if that was a little crass, but I turned it down a lot. So let me know, what are your thoughts about this? Do you really, really enjoy that Romantasy is hyped? Are you like me and you're kind of sick of it? Please let me know down below. And until the next time, guys, bye.